For more than 2 decades, Shui Junyi was one of the most trusted faces in China's state media, a calm and authoritative presence on CCTV who delivered breaking news, international reports, and political commentary to hundreds of millions of viewers. But in 2022, a single number began circulating within investigative circles: 300 million yuan. And with it came a wave of questions that China's media ecosystem seemed strangely unprepared to answer. The number was tied to a charity initiative connected to programs Shui Junyi had publicly supported, a fund praised for its humanitarian mission and its direct links to nationally backed organizations. Yet when discrepancies emerged, the silence was immediate and deafening. Reports of missing donations, unexplained transfers, and financial gaps began to surface on social media before disappearing within hours. Volunteer groups claimed that certain promised allocations never arrived. Independent accountants raised red flags about impossible figures. And suddenly, everything pointed back to the same place: a charity network with enormous influence, powerful sponsors, and the trusted face of Shui Junyi standing at its front. But what made the scandal truly explosive was not the allegation itself, it was the reaction. Instead of addressing the claims, major platforms restricted discussion. Articles were taken down, keywords were muted. Analysts quietly noted that upper-level departments had instructed outlets to reduce the noise surrounding the case. If nothing was wrong, why suppress information? And if something was wrong, why protect it? This video uncovers the financial trail, the internal pressure, and the hidden mechanics behind a $300 million scandal China never wanted exposed, and the dramatic fall of the man caught at its center. Long before the $300 million charity scandal placed him under an unforgiving spotlight, Shui Junyi had built a reputation that few Chinese broadcasters could match. As one of the most recognizable anchors on CCTV, China's dominant state media network, he cultivated an image of composure, authority, and moral clarity. Viewers saw him report from war zones, interview international leaders, and deliver breaking news with the steadiness of someone carrying the weight of national credibility on his shoulders. For millions of households, Shui Junyi was not just another presenter. He was the voice that shaped their understanding of the world. His ascent within CCTV was no accident. Internally, he was known as a consummate professional, someone who upheld the standards expected of a senior journalist working within the country's most politically sensitive broadcast environment. As a result, he developed a form of soft power that extended far beyond the newsroom. His association added legitimacy to national campaigns, public service programs, and, most relevant to this story, charity initiatives endorsed by state-linked organizations. When Shui Junyi attached his name to a project, it carried the weight of institutional trust. This influence made him a natural ambassador for humanitarian causes. Over the years, he appeared at charity galas, hosted fundraising broadcasts, and lent his credibility to philanthropic programs closely aligned with government priorities. To the public, he embodied sincerity. To sponsors, he offered visibility. And to charitable organizations, he provided something even more valuable: credibility in a system where transparency was often questioned. But with influence comes vulnerability. By the early 2020s, the charity sector in China was undergoing intense scrutiny following several high-profile scandals involving mismanaged donations. Regulators pushed for more oversight, while social media amplified every irregularity. In this climate, even a minor discrepancy could escalate into a crisis. For Shui Junyi, whose reputation rested on trustworthiness, the stakes were exponentially higher. His connection to a charity network handling hundreds of millions of yuan placed him directly in the path of growing public skepticism. At first, his involvement elevated the fund's legitimacy. Later, it would tie his fate to financial irregularities that spiraled far beyond his control. What began as a symbol of goodwill would soon become the epicenter of a scandal large enough to threaten the image of CCTV itself. The charity scandal surrounding Shui Junyi did not erupt suddenly. It unfolded through a series of financial irregularities that began appearing in late 2022, gradually revealing a pattern too large to ignore and too sensitive for the media to openly discuss. At the center of the controversy was a philanthropic network tied to several high-profile programs associated with CCTV, each promoted as transparent, patriotic, and aligned with national development goals. On paper, these initiatives were designed to deliver humanitarian aid, educational support, and medical resources to underprivileged regions. In reality, investigators would later find that the numbers simply did not match. The first red flag came from a publicly posted financial summary showing that donations exceeded 300 million yuan, yet only a fraction of that amount appeared to be accounted for in documented expenditures. Volunteer groups reported that resources promised to them never arrived. Several local administrators quietly complained about incomplete transfers, while accountants raised concerns about unverified expenses and vague budget descriptions. These irregularities, when placed together, suggested that the flow of money was far more complicated than publicly stated. As questions intensified, screenshots of internal spreadsheets began circulating on Weibo, detailing transactions that lacked corresponding invoices or justification. Some reflected expenditures routed through intermediary organizations with no clear purpose. Others showed transfers to third-party entities with no charitable background. Within hours, the posts were deleted, yet not before sparking widespread speculation. Why were financial details of a public charity treated like classified documents? The most alarming development came when analysts attempted to trace the donation chain. Instead of a straightforward path from donors to the charity, from the charity to beneficiaries, there were multiple stops involving private companies, media affiliates, and administrative bodies. Each transfer introduced another layer of opacity. In a sector already troubled by past scandals, these findings were enough to ignite suspicion. But what elevated the situation into a national controversy was one name repeatedly appearing in promotional materials, fundraising broadcasts, and organizational charts: Shui Junyi. Though no evidence suggested he had managed or directed the fund, his position as its public representative created a direct link between his personal credibility and the integrity of the charity's finances. In China, where public trust in philanthropy is delicate, the involvement of a well-known CCTV anchor had originally been intended to reassure donors. Instead, when the numbers became impossible to defend, that same association transformed into a liability. Attempts to clarify the situation only added to the confusion. The charity released a brief statement attributing the discrepancies to data consolidation issues, yet provided no detailed breakdown. Independent auditors who requested access to the records were reportedly denied. Meanwhile, online discussions questioning the missing funds were muted within minutes, and several journalists hinted, without naming sources, that upper-level departments had instructed media outlets to avoid amplifying misunderstanding. This coordinated silence raised a far more consequential question than the money itself. If nothing illegal occurred, why did China's information channels react as if something had? What began as a financial puzzle had now evolved into a structural mystery, one that reached far beyond spreadsheets and into the mechanics of how charity, media, and state-linked organizations operate behind closed doors. Once questions about the 300 million yuan charity fund began spreading online, the situation escalated far faster than anyone inside CCTV had anticipated. Public skepticism was rising, donation records were being circulated and deleted at alarming speed, and commentators began openly demanding answers. For a broadcaster accustomed to controlling every aspect of its public image, this represented a rare moment of vulnerability. And so, within days, the focus shifted from the charity fund itself to crisis containment. an internal effort to prevent the scandal from destabilizing the network's carefully built reputation. Multiple sources later described a series of closed-door meetings held at CCTV headquarters in early 2023, where senior executives, legal teams, and representatives from affiliated organizations gathered to assess the threat. The key question was not simply whether the charity funds had been mismanaged. It was how deeply the scandal might implicate the network. Shui Junyi, as the most visible figure associated with the program, was at the center of these discussions, not because he was believed to be responsible for the financial gaps, but because his image was inseparable from the brand of the charity itself. Any damage to the charity would reflect directly onto him, and, by extension, onto CCTV. In one internal briefing, executives reportedly emphasized the strategic priority of stability over transparency. This phrase, repeated by several insiders, referred to a long-standing approach within large Chinese institutions. Contain the narrative first, investigate second, disclose selectively third. The primary objective was to ensure that the scandal did not become a broader indictment of the network's management practices or its relationship with state-linked philanthropic groups. The first directive was immediate: reduce visibility. Mentions of the charity were minimized in broadcasts. Promotional materials were quietly removed from official pages. Scheduled fundraising segments were replaced with unrelated programming. As for Shui Junyi, his on-air appearances were not officially suspended, but insiders noticed a sudden shift. His presence was scaled back, major assignments were reassigned, and his role in public-facing initiatives was reevaluated. It was a strategy designed not to provoke attention, but to subtly reshape perception. Next came information control. Journalists affiliated with CCTV received internal memos instructing them to avoid commentary on the case. Editors were told to de-escalate online discussion, while social media managers were ordered to remove posts containing sensitive keywords. Even partner media outlets were contacted with recommendations to avoid amplifying unverified narratives. The speed of coordination revealed how seriously the network viewed the crisis. By the time external regulators stepped in for a preliminary audit, the damage had already been contained. Not solved, merely contained. The audit produced no public findings. No clear statement about the missing funds was issued. Instead, narrative emphasis shifted toward the charity's ongoing restructuring, a phrase widely interpreted as a controlled way of moving forward without admitting fault. But the silence surrounding the case spoke louder than any official explanation. For many observers, the sudden clampdown signaled that the scandal reached deeper than the finances of a single charity. It touched upon CCTV's internal governance, its partnerships, and its role as both a media entity and a representative of national authority. And caught in the center of this tightening circle of silence was Shui Junyi, not accused, not defended, yet undeniably impacted. As the $300 million charity scandal expanded beyond spreadsheets and online whispers, a new question emerged inside media and regulatory circles. Who would ultimately bear responsibility? In a system where reputational stability is prioritized over public accountability, scandals of this scale rarely hinge on a single individual. Instead, they become arenas for negotiation, quiet, strategic, and deeply political. And in this case, the negotiations revolved around two competing imperatives: protect institutional credibility, or sacrifice a public figure to preserve the structure behind the scenes. Within CCTV, fault lines quickly appeared. Some senior producers believed Shui Junyi should be shielded at all costs. Their argument rested on the idea that he was not directly involved in fund management. His participation was symbolic, promotional, and aligned with long-standing expectations for public figures to support national charity campaigns. Holding him accountable, they argued, would undermine trust in every similar initiative and set a precedent that could backfire. But another faction reached a different conclusion. They argued that Shui's visibility made him the most effective buffer between the scandal and the institutions tied to the charity. If the narrative subtly shifted toward his misjudgment or improper oversight, the deeper structural failures could remain untouched. This reasoning aligned with a broader pattern observed in state-linked scandals. Protect the mechanism, isolate the individual. Complicating matters was the involvement of state-affiliated organizations, which had their own stakes in limiting the fallout. Financial mismanagement within a charity connected to national development or humanitarian relief risked calling into question the standards of oversight across multiple agencies. That alone was enough to trigger a coordinated effort to manage, not resolve, the crisis. As one media analyst put it, the scandal wasn't treated as a financial issue. It was treated as a stability issue. Behind closed doors, negotiations intensified. Decisions were made about which information would be publicly addressed and which would be allowed to fade. It became clear that no single party wanted the truth exposed in full. Too many departments, partners, and affiliated entities were entangled in the charity's operational network. A transparent investigation would risk implicating not only individuals, but also the system that enabled the inconsistencies. And so a compromise took shape, one that would become devastatingly clear only in hindsight. Shui Junyi would not be publicly denounced, but neither would he be publicly defended. He would not face formal disciplinary action, yet his career would be quietly constrained. His appearances would decline. His promotional responsibilities would evaporate. His presence would diminish without explanation. It was the perfect middle ground. Institutions remained intact, and accountability was absorbed by the one figure large enough to carry the weight, but isolated enough to be sacrificed. This strategy also served another purpose. By avoiding explicit blame, CCTV reduced the risk of backlash from audiences who still respected Shui. At the same time, by gradually limiting his influence, the network signaled internally that high-profile figures must remain aligned with institutional priorities, even in charitable work. In the end, protection and sacrifice existed side by side. The system was protected, the fund was restructured, discussions were muted, and Shui Junyi's once unshakable standing within CCTV became a casualty, not because he was guilty, but because he was expendable. In the aftermath of the $300 million charity scandal, something unusual happened. Nothing. No public apology, no press conference, no suspension notice, no disciplinary report. Instead, what unfolded was a slow, almost imperceptible erasure of Shui Junyi from the national stage. A disappearance so carefully executed that many viewers did not realize it was happening until it was already complete. This method, often described by insiders as a soft descent, is a hallmark of how high-profile figures are handled when their public downfall is deemed too sensitive for open acknowledgement. The first sign was a subtle change in programming. In early 2023, Shui Junyi, once a staple of major broadcasts, was suddenly replaced in several flagship segments. Programs he had anchored for years introduced new faces without explanation. Promotional posters quietly omitted him. His social media updates slowed, offering no commentary on ongoing events or personal reflections. To the untrained eye, it looked like a veteran journalist simply stepping back. But to those familiar with media protocol inside CCTV, it was unmistakably the beginning of a controlled retreat. Internally, the effect was far more severe than the public could see. Assignments that once depended on his reputation and gravitas were reassigned to younger, more compliant anchors. Offers to host special reports, international forums, or national holiday broadcasts evaporated. Even charitable events, once the cornerstone of his public persona, stopped extending invitations. It was as if every organization had simultaneously concluded that associating with Shui Junyi posed unnecessary risk. What made this transformation especially striking was that no wrongdoing had ever been attributed directly to him. Investigators did not accuse him of managing funds, siphoning donations, or directing transfers. Yet the scandal's immense scale, 300 million yuan, combined with the sensitive institutions involved, meant that any figure linked to the fund became a liability. When public trust is shaken, someone must absorb the shock, and in this case, Shui Junyi's prominence made him the easiest point of impact. The public reaction was equally complicated. Many longtime viewers were bewildered. Others speculated that he had retired voluntarily, unaware of the pressures taking place behind the scenes. A small but vocal group on social media questioned why such a trusted figure had vanished without explanation, but their posts were quickly buried by the algorithm or drowned out by unrelated entertainment news. Major outlets provided no clarity. Silence, once again, became the preferred strategy. This silence had a purpose. A high-profile scandal involving financial mismanagement across multiple organizations could undermine public confidence in the philanthropic ecosystem and the media institutions promoting it. Therefore, preserving stability required not exposing the entire truth. Instead, the narrative was quietly reshaped. Not a fallen titan, but a fading presence. Not a scandal, but a transition. In this way, CCTV and its affiliates avoided public controversy, while still ensuring that Shui Junyi's influence diminished. Yet the cost to him was substantial. Professionally, he lost the position he spent decades building: the role of trusted national storyteller, conflict reporter, and symbolic bridge between China and the world. For an anchor whose identity was tied to credibility, the unspoken suggestion that his association had become problematic carried a weight arguably more painful than formal punishment. Personally, the consequences were subtler, but just as real. His absence from public life led to rumors about his health, his relationships, and even his political standing. Without official clarification, speculation filled the void. Some supporters expressed sympathy. Others distanced themselves, fearful of being connected to controversy. In the world of state media, where reputation and access are everything, social silence can be as devastating as institutional action. Still, the greatest unanswered question remains: was Shui Junyi's downfall the result of personal misjudgment, or was he simply caught in the gravitational pull of a scandal too large for any individual to escape? The charity fund did not operate in isolation. It was part of a complex network involving donors, administrators, sponsors, regulatory bodies, and state-linked agencies. If transparency had been pursued aggressively, the consequences might have extended far beyond a single anchor. That alone explains why the response was managed, not through exposure, but through quiet redistribution of responsibility. In the end, Shui Junyi became something rare in China's media landscape, a symbol of how a system protects itself. His decline was neither dramatic nor disgraceful. It was invisible, deliberate, and irreversible. His story raises a final, haunting question. When a $300 million charity scandal destroys a man's career without any official accusation, what does that reveal about the forces controlling the narrative and about the truths that remain hidden? In the end, the story of Shui Junyi reveals far more than the downfall of a single media figure. It exposes the architecture behind China's philanthropic and broadcasting systems, structures built on influence, perception, and the careful management of public trust. The $300 million charity scandal did not explode because of what was found. It imploded because of what could not be explained. And when the numbers stopped making sense, the reaction from institutions was not transparency, not accountability, but silence. That silence became its own message. Posts were deleted, reports were muted, discussions evaporated, and in that controlled vacuum, Shui Junyi's reputation quietly unraveled. Not through accusation, not through investigation, but through absence. His disappearance was engineered to feel natural, even inevitable, as though time, not scandal, had simply moved on without him. Yet everything about the timing, the coordination, and the media blackout suggests otherwise. This is the paradox at the heart of the case. a scandal large enough to destabilize a national icon, yet sensitive enough to prevent any official acknowledgement. If nothing was wrong, why suppress the story? And if something was wrong, why suppress the truth? Whether Shui Junyi was a casualty of poor oversight, institutional protectionism, or political calculation, one fact remains unavoidable. The moment a charity tied to state-linked organizations lost control of 300 million yuan, someone had to bear the weight, and that someone was the man millions once trusted to deliver the truth.